Great, thank you. Thanks very much. Just move this out of the way so you can see me. I feel a bit hidden behind the screen there. Game changers. Can sport save the environment is the question I'm going to try and address tonight. Hopefully we'll come to a conclusion at the end, but obviously very happy to take any questions. Hopefully I'll maybe say a few controversial things possibly, but certainly give you some ideas of questions so we can discuss them later. I'm not sure if everybody are able to read these very easily. I just wanted to start with a few quotes for you to sort of take in and think about, just to kind of set the scene. So this is from the Earth Charter. We stand at a critical moment in Earth's history, a time when humanity must choose its future. We must join together to bring forth a sustainable global society founded on respect for nature, universal human rights, economic justice, and a culture of peace. This is from the Transition Towns movement. What might environmental campaigning look like if it strove to generate a sense of elation rather than the guilt, anger and horror that most campaigning invokes? What might it look like if it strove to inspire, enthuse and to focus on possibilities rather than probabilities? This one from Tim Schmidt, who's the co-founder of the Eden Project down in Cornwall. He was also a London 2012 Sustainability Ambassador. The sheer beauty of the Olympic Park, enjoyed by so many, was a great triumph and gave sustainability the joyful quality of culture, not simply virtue. It's about embedding sustainability into what we do every day. It's not just an add-on that some nice person will do at the end to tidy up everybody else's problem. And you can't have some quotes without at least one from either Albert Einstein or William Shakespeare. Says, and Einstein one, any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. So if they kind of set a scene for what I'm thinking about in terms of sustainability at least. This is me. I know you're close enough already anyway, but I thought it might be in a big room. I'm Sustainability Manager at Marylebone Cricket Club, as Andrea said. I started working, this is my 14th season coming up. I've not been doing sustainability for 14 years. I had a background in ecology, environmental science, biodiversity management. Spent 10 years at university. Bachelor's degree, 2 masters and a Ph.D, so it was a bit too long possibly. So I came into work, one of my students actually said to me, you like cricket, don't you? And I said yes. He said, well, they're looking for stewards at Lord's. So I thought, great, I'm going along and watch some free cricket. So I did 6 years in the stands as a steward, and they then took me on full time. Done various roles, and 3 years ago they realised that I was asking awkward questions about our environmental performance. So I chose my own title and I became Sustainability Manager, and I full-time look at our environmental performance. I do some social stuff as well. I work with the Prince's Trust, with local groups, that sort of thing. I mainly look at our environmental performance. Excuse me. So this is Lord's, the pavilion at Lord's. We're the biggest cricket club in the UK, 30,000 capacity. We have 22,000 members. 18,000 are full members, 4,000 are associate members. Now, if you want to become a full member of Lord's, if you apply now, in 20 years' time you might be a full member. We've got a 20-year waiting list to join the membership at Lord's. We do about 15 major match days every year, and that's our biggest impact are on those days. We have a meetings and events department as well. It's a multi-million pound business for Lord's as well, just on our meetings and events. So all through the year we're working all the time. It's not just in the cricket season, it's not just those 15 days where we've got 30,000 people in watching cricket. We'll do something of the order of 400 to 500 matches every year. I'll come on to some of our impacts a little bit later on. I also founded and chair the British Association for Sustainable Sport. So we've got groups in there. Well, I'll leave that for now. I'll talk a bit more about BASIS a bit later on in the talk. So first of all, sustainability, what is it? I'm going to try and define it, certainly in my terms. Sustainability in sport, where are the synergies? How do they work together? A couple of case studies, just briefly. I'm going to talk a bit more about BASIS and what BASIS is trying to do within British sport. Draw a few conclusions, not too many, because I hope that we can discuss some of the issues when we come around to the questions at the end. So sustainability, what is it? Some of you will know this picture, very famous picture. This is the Earthrise picture, 7th of December 1968 this was taken. Apollo 8 mission, just coming around the back of the moon, and was able to take a photograph from the moon from 400,000 miles away looking back at the Earth. Why is this relevant to sustainability? This was the first time that we looked back from space and saw our planet just floating in blackness. It made it obvious that we are an enclosed system. All we get is energy from the outside. All of our resources are just on this one planet. It is a closed system. We have to manage those resources. We have to respect that system. Eugene Cernan on Apollo 17, we went to explore the moon and we discovered the Earth. 4 years later, 1972, I think it was 23rd of December 1972, this photo was taken. It's become the most used photo in history. This is the blue marble photo, as it became known. It's the first time we're able to look back that the Apollo 17 spacecraft was perfectly lined up between the Sun and the Earth, so you've got the perfect sphere of the Earth. And the photographer, actually, you can read most of the quote for yourself, but at the end, the challenge for all of us is to guard and protect this home together as the peoples of the Earth. And his Russian cosmonaut colleague, when you look at the Sun, the stars and the planet, you get a deeper connection for all living things. So these two pictures really brought it home. At that time, I was just about born. Things were changing. Things were changing. There was an amazing optimism coming around that perhaps sustainability, the environment, was becoming much more relevant. And the Brundtland Report, which most of you, I'm sure, will have heard of, the report from the first United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, actually talks about these two photographs. And in the report it says, in the middle of the 20th century we saw our planet from space for the first time. Historians may eventually find this vision had a greater impact on thought than did the Copernican revolution of the 16th century, which really turned humanity's thoughts of where we are in the universe on its head. To look back at our enclosed system, if that can have a similar impact, it's potentially huge, just those two photographs. Went on to say that from space we see a small fragile ball dominated not by human activity but by clouds, oceans, greenery and soil. What you see from space isn't human beings and what we're doing, if you look for it obviously, and nowadays with satellite imagery it's so common, you know, we get it all the time. Back in the 60s and 70s when these images came out, this was something amazing, unique, totally groundbreaking. But if you're just looking back on the planet, you don't see human beings moving around, but we are impacting on that environment, severely impacting on that environment. And our actions need to be managed. So I'm going to try and talk about how sport is making a contribution to that. So let's try and get a definition for sustainability. First of all, I'm going to make a distinction. You'll see the term sustainability and sustainable development used interchangeably, and it's quite possible I'll be guilty of it myself, actually talking, because it's easy to use both in either context. But just for clarity, sustainability is actually a state. It's either sustainable or it's not. It's a set of conditions. Sustainable development is the method to get to sustainability. So there is a difference. One's a state of being, the other's a process. If you Google sustainability and try and get a definition, you will find dozens, if not hundreds. This is the most common one. From the Brundtland Report, everybody seems to use this one or a variation of it. So development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Throws up a few questions. First of all, who defines what needs are? You know, there are ways of doing it, you know, there's Maslow's criteria and that sort of thing, but it really does mean needs. It's talking about food, it's talking about shelter, it's talking about clothing. It's not talking about computers, it's not talking about iPhones, all these sorts of things. It's talking about meeting basic human needs. And then everything from that, it's an add-on. A definition I prefer is from the BS 8901 British Standard on sustainability. An enduring balanced approach to economic activity, environmental responsibility and social progress. So it still keeps that time element in there, the enduring approach, so it's implying moving on into the future. And it brings in the three pillars, what's recognised as the three pillars of sustainability: the economic, the environmental and the social. Those three were actually first written down by a chap called Hans Karl von Karlowitz in a book called Silvicultura Economica in 1713. So you could say that it's the 300th anniversary of the birth of the 3 pillars of sustainability. There's even a definition for sustainable sport. It borrows from the other definitions. It says sport is sustainable when it meets the needs of today's sporting community. That obviously borrows from the first one, while contributing to the improvement of future sport opportunities for all and the improvement of the integrity of the natural and social environment on which it depends. So it links in with the environmental responsibility and social progress. So we have a definition to work to, at least for sport. It's not a definition as such, but it's a way of describing sustainable development. This is used by DEFRA. Sustainable development is about enabling people to satisfy their basic needs and enjoy a better quality of life without damaging the system that supports us. Very similar to the previous definitions. It was used in this document when the government tried to measure progress on sustainable development. This one's from 2010. They used 68 different markers to try and measure our progress on looking at sustainable development. They focused on 20. They've just undergone a consultation which is finished, and they're bringing out a new report, I believe this year, where they've reduced this down, I think, to 33 with a key of about, I think it's 15. So it's pretty complex, actually trying to work out how we're doing as a nation in terms of sustainability.
Sorry, if you speak up a little bit over the noise of the...
Okay, I will shout a bit more. So sustainability in sport. How does sport link to sustainability? Why could sport be a useful vehicle for trying to get over these sustainability messages? I'm hoping this is going to work as a film. This gentleman is a chap called Frank Sapovitz. He is the Executive Vice President of Events of the National Football League in America. He was introduced to me as the man who runs the Super Bowl. Now, the Super Bowl is the biggest single annual sports event that happens. It is absolutely huge. Anybody who knows anything about American football and American sports, the Super Bowl is crazy, absolutely crazy event, and this is the man who puts it together. So I'm hoping he's going to talk to us. But he's not. Okay, don't worry about that. Maybe the other ones aren't going to work either. Okay, don't worry. He's a very wise man, is Frank. I'll give you the link. You could actually look at that if you want to a bit later on. So, sustainability in sport, the common elements between sustainability and sport. Well, first, let's take a step back and look at those definitions again. Development is all about positive change over time. It doesn't necessarily imply growth. Growth is all about consumption, expansion, using resources. You don't have to consume to develop. So there's the DEFRA definition again. Sustainable development about enabling people to satisfy their basic needs. And there's again, sorry, I'm throwing too many definitions at you. I'll stop with the definition soon. But sport, according to the European Union definition of sport, is all forms of physical activity, any sort of organised activity that improves your physical fitness, mental well-being, forms social relationships, and it could involve competition. Doesn't necessarily have to. So that is everything from your Manchester United playing Real Madrid tonight, I think, going down to somebody taking a walk in the park on a Sunday afternoon just for their own personal fitness. It's that broader definition that the European Union uses, and that's relevant a bit later on. That's in the European Sports Charter. So how does sustainable development link up with sport? Change leading to improvement. If you're a sportsman, sportsperson, you want to become fitter, you want to improve, you want to get better. It's the same thing in sustainable development. You want to improve your situation, you want to improve your performance, your environmental performance, your social performance. So these are the kind of messages I try to put over when I'm talking to sports people about why there's a link. It's about facilitation and empowerment. So as a sportsperson, again, you want to improve. You want to try new things. It's the same in sustainable development. It's about giving communities the opportunity to respond to these issues. Building social relationships, community involvement. sports team made up of individuals interacting. If one element of the team isn't working, the whole thing falls apart. Same with communities working towards sustainable goals. So the similar messages you can start to use. You can do this for many elements of society. It happens to work for sport in this way. And enhancing the quality of life, improve your fitness through sport, through activity, through participation. Sustainable development will improve communities, improve those relationships within communities. So again, why is sport a useful vehicle for sustainability? To put it in sporting terms, the need for sustainable development is a race against time. How do sports people deal with these sorts of things? You recognise those game-changing moments, those times when you have to take action, the time when you have to step up your game and improve. It's about individuals contributing, putting the effort into your local community to actually improve performance. Look at what you're personally doing in terms of recycling, in terms of energy use, those kind of things. Lobbying, local governments, whatever. It's about being outside the comfort zone. You know, people can look at our environmental impacts at the moment and maybe throw your hands up and think, well, I can't do anything about it. That's an uncomfortable realisation, but how do you deal with it? It's about passion through thick and thin. It's about realising you can make a difference. In sport, you have to do that. You have to perform for the whole 90 minutes, the 5 days of a cricket test match, whatever. It's the same thing for sustainability. Performing under pressure, it's quite a long list here. Coming back from losing, we may feel like we're in a losing position at the moment, but don't be defeated by it, just keep pushing through. The clock running down, we're losing time. It's about working within the rules of the game. In sport, you're held within those rules. You've got to understand the way the system works in terms of the environment, in terms of ecology as well. It's about leadership and it's about team spirit. Right, I did have somebody else talking here. Let's see if he comes through. Okay, the videos aren't working at the moment. So moving on to a couple of case studies. Some of you will recognise this place, I'm sure. I came down for the first match of the Six Nations a few weeks ago. Wales did actually defend this attempt going in. I did watch a little bit of rugby, but in all honesty I came down to look at your bins. I spend a lot of time looking at bins. It's a bit sad. Even at Lord's, the cricket's going on, I tend to be rummaging around in waste bins and compactors and that sort of thing. It's just what I do. This is what's left after the game. I've said to, I will introduce Darren Satanian. Darren's a facilities manager at Millennium Stadium who allowed me to come down and visit. This is remarkably clean compared to the mess that we have at Lord's at the end of the day. I'll explain a bit more about Lord's and why we're so messy there a bit later on. But this is what people leave. When they walk out, the game's over, you drop your stuff and off you go. Some of you may know, but probably most of you don't. At the end of the day, there's actually an army of people that come in and actually hand pick all of that rubbish. Everything is picked up by hand, is taken out off to a compactor, and off it goes to be dealt with at the recycling facility. This to me is, I was going to say beautiful, that just makes me sound really quite weird and slightly sad, but this is such a clean waste stream. The majority of this stuff, we're approaching 80, 85, even 90% recycling coming from the Millennium Stadium. It's one of the best, in terms of recycling, from that point of view, it's one of the best in the UK, certainly. And just in case you didn't recognise Darren already, he's up there on the screen now. Millennium Stadium was actually the first UK stadium to achieve the BS 8901 certification for sustainable event management and just converted to the international standard, which is ISO 2012-1, inspired by the Olympic Games, for their sustainability programs. And Darren's receiving an award at the bottom as well in the Sustainability Environment class in the 5th International Sport Management Awards. So Millennium Stadium is leading the way as far as UK stadia go, at least. Something for Cardiff to be proud of.
Sorry, can you speak up a bit more again?
Even more?
It's going down.
Is it?
Sorry, the certificate was for
Sustainable Event Management, BS 8901, Sustainable Event Management. Last year, hopefully a lot of you will have noticed there was quite a big event in London going on as well. We had the Olympic Games. So this is the Olympic Park. That's the main stadium. You can see they've got their vertical wind turbines buzzing around. This chap down here, he's actually the guy who's going to be in charge of sustainability at the Commonwealth Games. So I walk around with him and one of the sustainability teams from LOCOG. So a quick look at some of the things they did at the Olympics as well. This is a basketball arena. Some of you may notice there are no basketball hoops there. This was actually on finals day, so they'd shifted the basketball out to the O2. A lot of people turned up with their basketball tickets and had to jump on the train and shoot off. So they changed this into the handball arena for it to be a bigger event for the finals. But this is a basketball arena. It's no longer there. It's been taken down, packaged up, and about 2 weeks ago it was advertised for $2.5 million. So if anybody wants a basketball arena, there's one going. LOCOG are selling one off now. So it was a temporary structure. It was going to be a temporary structure. It was built as a temporary structure. It's been, like I say, it's been taken down and it's now being sold off for whoever wants it. This is the hockey. British ladies got the bronze medal on this pitch. This is no longer there either. The actual pitch has been taken up and has been moved and has been relayed and is now in use in a different location. So again, absolutely temporary. And the amazing thing to me about the Olympics, and possibly anybody else who went may have seen this, it was, for the temporary venues, it was unashamedly temporary. It was clear that these were temporary. So this actually looks like a pretty robust venue. When you're inside and you're looking at it, you're there, you're experiencing the sport, it looks pretty robust. It's everything you would expect. From the outside, it's made of scaffolding and it's temporary. Totally unashamedly temporary. All of this has been reused. I saw the chap who was a corporate sustainability manager for LOCOG this morning, and in excess of 99% of all of their overlay has been reused somewhere. So to me it's incredible. The amount of planning that went into that is quite remarkable. And even the BBC had a temporary structure. This is the BBC studio on the top of shipping crates. So anybody who watched the Olympics, this is where the BBC are actually broadcasting from, looking across the Olympic Park. So again, another temporary structure. They even created habitats in the middle of London, right in the middle of this park, where they literally had millions of ticket holders coming through. They created habitat. This is a wetland habitat. In the back, I think that's the handball arena. Just in the back there, you can just about see. Just down here, these are nest boxes for sand martins in this block here. And the wildlife in there was quite remarkable. So right in the centre of London, with all these people around, they'd actually created wetland habitats as well. You don't get those sorts of opportunities at a Millennium Stadium or at a Lord's, but in this parkland area, they're able to do that sort of thing. This guy is David Stubbs, who's the head of sustainability. While I was walking around, he actually brought a tour around as well. So he was involved actually talking to people and explaining to them what they'd done on the Olympic Park. They obviously wanted to manage their waste as well. So they had the goal that there would be no waste to landfill during Games time. So for that 77-day period of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, they were going to send no waste to landfill. They achieved that goal. They didn't send any waste to landfill. They originally said that they'd recycled 82% of their waste. So they beat their goal, their 70% target. They'd beaten that. They originally said 82%. That was the figure of what left the venues. When they'd actually taken it away and analysed it fully, they dropped that to 62%. So they didn't meet their 70% target. Reason being primarily contamination of some of their waste streams. But it's interesting that most sports venues will report what is moving off-site as their recycling rates, and they don't get the secondary report coming back. And it's not just sports venues. I'm not just singling them out. A lot of venues will do this: music venues, festivals, that sort of thing. So there's got to be a relationship between the venue, be it sport, be it music, be it a festival, and then their waste provider to find out what the true recycling rates are. So I'd suggest to anybody, when you see recycling rates, maybe question them slightly. But it does prove that if even the Olympics can't quite meet a target, it is actually difficult for the rest of us. I'll talk about it a bit more, but at Lords we're currently doing 30%. The industry average, we've been told, is around 15. Millennium Stadium does a remarkable job with the amount that they're getting recycled.
So what is the Millennium Stadium?
Around 85%. So this is Lords. This is a nice link between the Olympics and Lords, because this is Lords 30 days before the Olympics started. We were an Olympic venue, we put on the Olympic archery. This was Lords 30 days later, just as competition started. So we had quite a big overlay on top of our hallowed turf at Lords. We had 6,000 people walking on, sitting on our turf. Not that I'm getting angry just thinking about it. It was actually a fantastic experience. It was an amazing experience. It was disruptive. We had 13 days to actually get all of this off and then stage a test match between England and South Africa. So it's quite a big task. We replaced about 40% of the outfield. And that's you can see that the targets are just off screen. They're over on this side and they're firing from back here, so they're going right across the wicket at Lords. Luckily no arrows dropped and went into the wicket. So a few facts and figures at Lords. What actually is our impact at Lords? Well, in terms of carbon emissions, Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, so our direct energy use, we're looking at around 3,000 tonnes of carbon just from our energy use. Our indirect emissions are arguably we're responsible for around 7,000, so we've got a total carbon footprint in a year of about 10,000 tonnes. Sounds like quite a lot, but if you look at London, or if you look at the UK in general, we're a tiny proportion of all of our emissions. So then how do I, as sustainability manager, persuade my senior managers, who are always primarily looking at budgets rather than the performance targets that I'd be looking at, how can I actually persuade them that this is an important issue for us to look at? In terms of waste, these are 2010 figures. Remarkably, we actually had 700 tonnes of waste last year as well, so very comparable. The only reason they're 2010 figures is because the UK figures are for 2010. So 2010 we were 26.5% recycling. I'll be honest, I shouldn't say this in public, we actually dropped to just under 20% last year for our whole year. We had so many problems with our compactors last year that a lot of our recyclables just kept getting contaminated with other waste, and we couldn't recycle that stuff. We haven't sent waste to landfill for 4 years. So we don't send any waste to landfill, it goes to incineration with energy recovery. There are issues with that we can talk about, but nothing goes into landfill from Lords, at least not directly. So again, with the UK producing something like 300 million tonnes, Lords' contribution of 700 tonnes really doesn't seem like very much. So again, why should we be actually looking at our environmental performance? For us specifically, it's because of the effect that could come back to us. And I think that we've got a responsibility. If we're going to be concerned about the effects, we really should look at the causes and what our contribution is. So for Lords and for cricket, warmer winters, wetter winters, more frequent heavy rainfall, essentially what that means for us is we have to cut the grass every month. The grass just continues growing. We had a period, not this year because we've had a cold winter, a couple of years ago, there was only about 4 weeks where we didn't have to cut the grass. So in terms of management, it actually changes, but it also means that any of the pests, the fungi, any of the insect pests that are in the grass don't get killed off by the cold weather. So potentially our grass could change. Summer's going to be hotter, more frequent hot days, higher nighttime temperatures, drier, less cloud cover, less soil moisture. For anybody who knows about cricket in particular, you know that cricket is so affected by atmospheric conditions and conditions of the pitch. Of all sports, cricket is absolutely affected by humidity levels, by the hardness of the pitch, all those kind of things. Add on to that, changing growth conditions, changing germination for the grass seeds. Potentially, cricket could fundamentally change. The English conditions that England and Wales team enjoy when they're playing could change significantly. and it could change the way the game is played. It is that significant for cricket as a sport. For other turf sports, it's more about the management of the grass. For cricket, it is fundamentally about the way the game is played. So I try and scare my bosses with this kind of story, but it is absolutely true. If the climate change predictions go as are suggested that they'll go, cricket could fundamentally change in the way it's played in this country. What about our customers? Do they actually care? Surely they're just coming to watch either rugby, going to the Millennium, or just coming to watch cricket at Lords. They don't want somebody preaching to them about environmental performance. They get that at home, they get that from their council, telling them to recycle, that sort of thing. So I did a survey a couple of years ago and asked our customers, do you think that sports actually have an impact? Do sports events have an impact? Roughly half, 48%, said some or significant impact. It's relatively low. People think there was a big impact. But roughly half felt that there was some kind of impact that we should monitor. Just down in the corner it says women were more concerned than men, younger people more concerned than older people. That's quite an arbitrary break there. And frequent visitors are a bit more concerned than infrequent visitors. As a spectator, does it matter to you if the venue is trying to improve their performance? Only 10% said no. 86% said yes, they should try to improve their performance. 4% said yes, they should, definitely. I need to add to that last one, where I said yes, they should be green, in the actual questionnaire there was a bit afterwards where it said, and I won't come back if they're not. So I kind of biased my own results there by possibly overstating it, but I would suggest that to get 4% of people, to lose 4% of your customers just because of their perception that you're not performing as well as they would like you to, is actually quite significant for any business. But the take-home message here is that 90% would expect us to actually do something to improve our performance. And are you happy to cooperate? 95% of people said yes, they're happy to cooperate. Got another video. This one's a different one, so I'm hoping that this one will work. This is just another little case study of what the England and Wales Cricket Board, they do miss out the W, I apologise for that, I'm nothing to do with the ECB. This is a little video of what they're doing for their community clubs. So this isn't a professional game, this isn't going down to the Swallow Stadium or Lords. This is what the ECB do for communities.
Nurturing the social, economic and environmental conditions within a club is critical to its future success. This short animation seeks to highlight the types of changes that might be considered to improve the club and provide opportunities for much needed income and cost savings. Sustainable urban drainage systems, or SUDs, can reduce your exposure to surface water drainage charges and can support the recycling of water for other uses on the site. Recording consumption rates on meters is important, as this information will help to develop an understanding of costs and which elements of the club's activities attract the most charges. Many clubs have large roof profiles and are often south-facing. These types of buildings can accommodate technologies that harness the energy of the sun.
Okay, so I won't play through the whole thing, I'll just move it on a little bit.
Houses a number of valuable assets that may be at risk and difficult to insure. The ventilated storage of chemicals and fuel is a requirement and poses a key safety issue. If the site is subject to localized flooding, ensure equipment is raised above the waterline or moved to a site not at risk. The non-turf pitch systems will require regular management in line with the product's management manual. Most systems require rolling and watering during dry phases and can be affected by extended periods.
So the governing body is actually putting this sort of information out. This is happening in rugby, it's happening in cricket, it's starting to happen in football. This is going out to club level. And there are thousands of clubs. There are 4,500 cricket clubs in the UK, from kind of small village ones right up to the county teams that are playing. So they have a potentially very, very big impact, and the governing body is putting this sort of information out. They've actively got people on the ground who are doing these seminars regularly. English Golf Union, we've got 2,500 golf clubs What England Golf are doing is actually remarkable. Look up on the website, just Googling England Golf and see what they're doing. They're doing some remarkable stuff at club level. Thing for me in that video, it wasn't just talking about putting on solar panels, it wasn't just talking about rainwater harvesting, it was actually telling people things as simple and as basic as look after your equipment and it will last longer. Should be blatantly obvious. It actually isn't. People do need to be told that sort of thing. But that's the economic side of sustainability as well. So governing bodies are getting more and more involved in this sort of thing. So I'm going to move on to BASIS and what BASIS is actually doing. British Association for Sustainable Sport. So it's an association of clubs, venues, governing bodies, other sports organisations. At the moment, in our steering group, we've got cricket, tennis, rugby, football, golf and horse racing. So in terms of spectator sports and to some extent participation sports, particularly with golf, we've got the major sports in the UK are actually involved. We're getting more involved with athletics, hopefully. They're going to be coming on board as well. So these are the people that are involved on our steering committee. We've got people from the ECB, myself from Lords up at the top there, obviously Millennium Stadium and Welsh Rugby Union. Arsenal Football Club are involved, England Golf, the Jockey Club, and this is Wimbledon, just down here. We've also got an environmental lawyer, which is handy. We've got the RFU from Twickenham, and we have a former low-cog sustainability manager as well, so all of her experience from the Olympic Games is coming through to BASIS as well. Very brief history. Started off way back in 2010. September 2010, I got together with two professors at UCL. One who was in climate change and one who was a planner, a city planner. And we pulled together a seminar, invited in chief executives from various sports clubs to come and talk about sustainability. So the first presentation was on climate change, and the guy basically presented it as Armageddon was imminently about to happen. It was actually quite scary. I felt a bit nervous about it as well. We talked about all the planning issues, and I talked about it from the point of view of managing a sports facility. So way back then we didn't really know what was going to happen from that. But we did then do a seminar at UCL, and we produced this document that is available certainly as a PDF on the UCL website. If anybody's interested, I can give the link if anybody wants to read that. That's 3 years old now, so things have updated, but it was a good summary of where we were at the time. 6 months later we had a meeting at Wimbledon. This is the All England Lawn Tennis Club at Wimbledon, and this was where we actually first pulled together the steering group for BASIS. We had our launch event in October 2011 at the Emirates Stadium. Some of you may recognise this one. We had another event in March of last year at the Millennium Stadium where we tried to pull together some key people in policy, so people like Sport Wales, Sport England, actually came along to talk about what direction they think BASIS should take and what we should be doing, what we should be offering to sport in the UK. And we had another conference at Cheltenham Racecourse last year. So most of what we do as BASIS is actually getting people together, getting them to talk. It's about case studies, it's about trying to understand what other people are doing, essentially. So the objectives of BASIS: to educate, share, develop best practice, integrate sustainable development principles into all aspects of sport, and that's from professional sport right down into community sport. We want to encourage and facilitate collaboration between anybody who's interested in this area, and then to use the influence of sport to educate the public about sustainability issues. We've got to do the first two first, because you really got to have your own house in order before you start telling other people what to do. But there's so much passion in sport that to put forward that message, if somebody walks into your preferred football team, if you're a Chelsea fan, Arsenal, whatever, Man United, if you walk in there and see them recycling, see that they've got water-saving devices in the toilets, solar panels, whatever, something tells you, this is normal behaviour. My team's doing it, it must be normal behaviour. And it's probably more powerful, the message coming from a sports team that engenders so much passion, than it would be from a government minister or a leaflet from a local authority, whatever. So the way we've tried to structure our approach, we endorse the Earth Charter. I won't go into that now because I'm taken up a lot of time. But the Earth Charter is basically a statement. It came from the 1992 Rio Summit. It took about 10 years to develop. 5,000 people consulted in its actual development. And it's almost a statement of where we are and where we need to be to actually try and come out of some of the environmental crisis that we're experiencing at the moment. There's something called the European Sports Charter that came out of the European Parliament back in 1992. And Article 10 of that charter specifically deals with sport and sustainable development. And from that came the Code for Sustainable Sport, again from the European Parliament back in 2000. Remarkably, no government department in the UK actually picked up on this. I've contacted all of them, nobody knew it existed, everybody said it was somebody else's responsibility to do it anyway. So nobody else, as far as I can tell, has picked up on these two documents. They actually provide a perfect structure for implementing sustainable development principles into sport. And then we're starting to develop a One Planet sport approach to provide a framework for what we're doing. So the One Planet living principles were developed by Bioregional and WWF a few years ago, and actually formed the basis of the London 2012 approach to sustainability. They adapted it, they changed it a bit, but these are the 10 key areas that the One Planet living principles address. And we're trying to use those, and I'm currently trying to develop these for MCC and Lords as to how we manage. We did a survey back in 2011. 54 clubs and venues replied. Just a few quick results. Is it important to your organisation to manage your environmental impact? More than 95% said yes, it is, which I think is amazing. That's a remarkable response. Until we ask them the next question, 80% say that their operational requirements often take precedence. So they're saying, yes, it's important to us, but not if it costs more, not if it's inconvenient, not if it's a problem. So they're not integrating it actually into the fibre of what they're doing. I'm not necessarily criticising that, I'm just saying there's got to be a change of mindset. Sustainability and these issues have to be embedded into the way people do it. At the moment, it's still thought of as, yes, that's a nice idea, but it's kind of an add-on. It's got to be embedded in. Do you have an environmental management policy? 90% said either yes they do or they're developing one. So again, that's encouraging. This one I found quite bizarre, I guess. So the question asked, are you monitoring? And if you monitor, have you set targets? So quite high. 84% monitor their energy, 78% monitor water, 63% monitor waste. But on pretty much each one, only half of the people that are monitoring are then actually using that data and setting targets. So you could argue, what's the point of gathering the data in the first place if you're not going to then act on it? So again, this is just a change of mindset. People know they should be gathering data, but then how do you utilise that information? Hopefully this is where BASIS comes in, as we start to educate people and tell them how to use the information. Just quickly, the final one, we actually asked people, are you doing these things? Please don't try and read everything on there, but essentially this line running across between the sort of burgundy purple colour and the yellow, below that's good, above that's not so good. So we're good at things like recycling, energy monitoring, looking at our water usage, looking at our waste. We're not good at using renewable energy. We're certainly not good at managing our food waste. We're not good at monitoring greenhouse gases, and transport we're really not that very good at all. So we're getting an idea of what sports venues, where they need the advice. I'll quickly mention a sister organisation, the Green Sports Alliance in the States. They started up pretty much exactly the same time as BASIS. In the Seattle area, Seattle-Portland area, with 6 teams. They currently have 130 members. So in about the 18 months, 2 years they've been around, green sport in the US has really expanded. They had a conference in Seattle last year. They got one in New York in August this year. But it's really spreading across the US in professional sport. These guys specifically look at professional sports and college level sports, so they're looking at the big stadia. They're not doing the grass level work that BASIS is doing. They produced a report, and I unashamedly took the name of my talk from this report, so I'll admit that now, as any academic should look at their sources. But I kind of pinched a name. But they were much more bullish about it, and they're saying how the sports industry is saving the environment. I had the decency to put a question mark on the end of it. But this is, if you're interested in this area, type it. It's from the NRDC. Type in game changer. Very good report. Lots of case studies in there about what's happening in the US. Conclusions. We're nearly at the end. So game changer or not, can sport save the environment? No, of course it can't. There's no single element of society that is going to save the environment. Can sport play a significant and meaningful role? Absolutely. Yes, we can. There's a huge amount that sport can do. There is so much passion around sport participation. If we can start getting the messages out there to the fans, to the participants, it will start to make a difference. So I did start off with some quotes, and I'm going to end with the same quotes and just pull out a few key words. So respect, from a sports perspective, is all about respecting your fellow competitors, your fellow participants, and the officials. We need respect for nature. You've got respect. If sport is played as it should be played, I'm not talking about people, there's cheats and there's, drug use and whatever else. Forget that. In its purest sense, as a competition, sport should be played according to these ideals. So respect for your fellow competitors. Rights, the right to have a fair chance, to have the opportunity to compete on a level playing field. Justice, you play within the laws and the rules. So all of these elements that we require for sustainability are there, embedded in sport. And peace is about the ability to participate without prejudice, to actually experience fair play within your sport. Inspiration and enthusiasm. If you're a sports fan, and this goes for music, for the arts, whatever, but if you're a sports fan, there's very little that will inspire and enthuse you more than seeing your team win, to see a close game and your team actually winning in the last minute, some amazing performance. It's one of the most powerful and emotional things, if you're a sports fan, that you'll experience. And about focusing on possibility. There's no person who plays sports that will go into a game thinking they're going to lose or they really shouldn't. You go in with that positive outlook. You're focused on that possibility of winning this game. And that's what we need in our approach to sustainability as well. Again, I'm going to finish off with quotes. I'll throw in quite a few at you. From the Game Changer report, sport is a great unifier, transcending political, cultural, religious and socio-economic barriers. It also wields a uniquely powerful influence, both cultural and economic, that provides much needed leadership in sustainability practices. And the professional sports industry includes some of the world's most iconic, inspirational and influential organisations. In a cultural shift of historic proportions, the sports industry is now using its influence to advance ecological stewardship. It's starting within sport now. I've lost my last slide. But that is the end. Thank you very much. I'll just get the last slide up. Done quite well until that point. There we go. Thank you very much.